from Lagos, the nation's commercial capital. This is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
Tonight, Benin monarch meets with leaders of political parties in Edo State ahead of the September 19 governorship election, calls for peaceful conduct. Federal Executive Council approves multi-billion-dollar full automation of the Nigeria Customs Service for improved revenue generation and security. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, pays diplomatic visit to Ghana, seeks amicable solution to Nigerian traders' crisis. Flood ravages communities in Kaduna, Imo, and Jigawa states. And German Chancellor Angela Merkel says Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny was a victim of attempted murder. Asks the world to look to Russia for answers. Plus, business, sports, and later from our studios in London.
Business news tonight, Nigeria's total trade volume plunges more than 27% in the second quarter of the year.
On sports news tonight, Nigeria Football Federation announces 2 international friendlies for the Super Eagles against Cote d'Ivoire and Tunisia next month in Austria.
The countdown to the Edo State governorship election scheduled for September 19th begins. But one paramount concern of stakeholders is the need to have peaceful election without rancor or loss of lives. That perhaps is one of the reasons the Oba of Benin, Eware II, called for a meeting with key leaders participating in the election today. He warned them against setting the state on fire through their actions and comments. Some of those in attendance include the PDP and APC governorship candidates, Godwin Obaseki and Osage Ize-Iyamu, former APC national chairman, Chief John Oyegun and Adams Oshomole, and Chief Dan Orbi.
Both parties are prompt for the meeting convened by the revered monarch. The drums of war had beaten too loud for the Oba to bear. There is no ambiguity as to how the Oba feels as he voices his displeasure without mincing words.
Where do we hear that you are arming thugs? Why? At the end of the day, the thugs keep those guns with them. You cannot tell them to. If it is true, I don't know. If it is true, the politicians are arming them. They keep those guns. This is not the first time in Nigerian history. They have been doing this kind of thing before.
The monarch is not about to let them go without a commitment from Governor Obaseki and Pastor Ize-Iyamu.
Edo State is a nation state. Edo State goes all the way past Onitsha. If you want to talk about the kingdom, the empire, Edo State is only the current seat of a major empire in Africa. And you all know that, and you are part of it. Then why are you shooting at each other? Why are you not proud of it? You are part of it. You should be proud of it. You should show you are very mature. But the utterances are here. The statements are here. The activities most immature. I will want the politicians to please assure us, because enough is enough. We must surprise everybody else that when the election comes, it's peaceful. When the election comes, it's not what they are expecting. Edo State is not like that.
As the Oba's message sinks in, both men immediately assure the monarch that they will comply accordingly.
I want to assure you, Your Majesty, that in my role as the Chief Security Officer of the state, I am doing all I can. I'm doing all within my possible best to maintain peace and safety in Edo State. And to just put it on record that I have no problems whatsoever with my brother Usagi Zayama. We are contestants, we're contesting for the same position, but we have no personal animosities or quarrels or issues.
Every campaign we do henceforth, we're going to spend some time to also talk to all of them about the need to keep to the peace, no matter what provocation they might talk about.
The assurance is sealed with a hug, a symbol of truce and a demonstration of peaceful conduct as the election looms. The people of Edo State and Nigerians generally will expect that the embrace is not merely for the cameras, but genuine commitment to cease the violence and allow the people to decide who rules them.
Meanwhile, the governor of Edo State, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, has restated his commitment to ensuring a violence-free election on September 19th, no matter the provocation. Governor Obaseki gave this assurance at a rally in Orionwan local government area of the state as the PDP continues its campaigns across wards in Edo State ahead of the polls.
It's a second day for the PDP governorship campaigns in Orionwan local government area. The atmosphere in Ugboko ward is no different from other wards earlier visited. Party supporters rise to the occasion as campaign songs rend the air. The campaign team continues from where it stopped, marketing their candidate in the Edo governorship election, Governor Godwin Obaseki.
His second coming is to consolidate the gains of his first tenure and to work more for the development and good of Edo people.
The PDP entourage has been to the palace of the Oba of Benin for a stakeholders meeting at the instance of Oba Eware II. Addressing supporters at Oronigbe, Mr. Obaseki reiterates his stance on maintaining peace at all costs.
I am assuring you, as the Chief Security Officer of Edo, that there will be no violence in Edo for this election. The people who would have created violence, we all made a promise in the Oba's Palace this morning that there will be no violence in Edo during this election.
Meanwhile, in Uromi, Eson Northeast, the women's wing of the party kicks off its own campaigns. The wife of the PDP flag bearer, Mrs. Betsy Obaseki, lends her voice to the Obaseki Shaibu re-election bid. It's all hands on deck for the PDP as it steps up preparations towards the Edo governorship election taking place on September the 19th.
Away from the Edo elections, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, is confident the diplomatic row between Nigeria and Ghana will soon be resolved. The Speaker, who is currently on a two-day visit to Ghana following the tension which saw several Nigerian businesses shut down, met with his Ghanaian counterpart, Professor Mike Okwaye, and other Ghanaian legislators. He says he's hopeful that Nigeria and Ghana will arrive at mutually acceptable resolutions to the disputes. He explains that his decision to travel to Ghana is for him to explore legislative diplomacy towards resolving the issues affecting both countries. In the meantime, the Federal Executive Council has approved $3.1 billion for the end-to-end automation of the Nigeria Customs Service. The Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, disclosed this at the end of the FEC virtual meeting in Abuja today. The Council also approved the upgrade of safe towers in Lagos, Kano, Abuja, and Port Harcourt airports. Our correspondent, Kayla Megwa reports.
President Muhammadu Buhari presides over the 14th Virtual Federal Executive Council meeting at the Council Chambers of State House in Abuja. The number of approvals granted by Council gives an insight into just how many memos were presented to Council, bearing in mind that the ultimate recipients of the services provided by these approved projects are Nigerians. For example, the full automation of the customs service is estimated to yield a whopping $176 billion in revenue, which is more revenue than the country gets from the oil sector.
This project has the potential to yield up to $176 billion of revenue for the project. And the consortium
areas in the state are likely to experience flooding. Meanwhile, the death toll has risen to 18 in neighboring Jigawa State as more people become displaced from flooding. This report takes a look at the situation in those states.
Residents of Abubakar Kigo, Barnawa, Kudenja, Ngandosa and others in Kaduna South local government area woke up to flooding that wreaked havoc in their homes and farmlands. The flood waters have forced many residents out of their homes after hours of heavy downpour that began on Monday night and lasted till Tuesday morning. The incident comes weeks after the Kaduna State Emergency Management Agency issued an alert that some local government areas in the state are likely to experience flooding.
Some of us were new tenants, and when we came in here, the people who will give us the house will tell us the house is safe, it's safer.
Residents of the affected areas had also been warned to vacate to safer places. Staying in the northwest, a death toll in Jigawa State has risen to 18 as more towns become flooded. Again, a heavy downpour in the course of this disaster in Buji local government area has left roads completely flooded, and the only means of transportation is a push cart pulled by bulls, a business taken up by the young people. Women and children are forced to pass through the waters to seek alternative accommodation. Buji residents are no strangers to flooding at this magnitude. What they seek is a permanent solution, and their appeal goes out to the state and federal government.
When you want to come to the local government secretariat, whether you like it or not, you have to leave your vehicle outside and maybe get yourself into the local government through some unconventional means.
In the southeast, work has commenced to reinforce the concrete line drainage at the Irete axis of the Owerri-Onitsha Federal Highway to check the flooding usually experienced on the road. This is what it looks like anytime there is a downpour. The pavement constantly fills due to the inability of the water to flow to the discharge point. This is expected to be fixed in a matter of weeks.
We have had problem with discharge of surface runoff. So the channel here was very small and was constantly silted up by inhabitants. You can see market and stores around here. So the agency decided to solve a recurrent problem here where the pavement always fails as a result of inability of water to flow. So we have decided to do a bigger channel that will effectively discharge the runoff to a discharge point. We are doing a 1.2 by 1.2 cross-section of reinforced concrete line drain on this side.
Even with this intervention, the agency believes it's still partly the responsibility of residents to lessen the havoc caused by flooding, reiterating the call not to block the drainage systems with refuse and desist from building structures along water channels.
Gunmen have invaded the home of the winner of the June 12 presidential election, Chief MKO Abiola, in Lagos, carting away cash and other valuable items belonging to the family. A member of the family, Tudun Abiola, who narrated their encounter with the gunmen, said in a statement, members of the family were harassed and tortured. Thankfully, no life was lost. Meanwhile, police authorities in the state say they have arrested some suspects in connection with the crime. To other stories, the newly inaugurated president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Olumide Akpata, has opened up on what appears to be his first official reaction to the reports of the planned breakaway of lawyers in northern states from the Nigerian Bar Association. The NBA president is insisting the association will not disintegrate, as the Welfare Committee of the association has been mandated to reconcile aggrieved members. According to him, if mistakes have been made, the NBA will learn and apologize, and apologies will be issued where necessary. He made the comments at the end of an interactive session with northern stakeholders and chairmen of the various branches of the NBA today.
We don't need a committee to reach out. We have a standing welfare committee. Yes, so we don't need a special committee for this. And welfare encompasses all sorts of issues, making sure that our members are faring well. So our welfare committee, we actually have a welfare secretary who will lead our team to make sure that we reach out to our members, those who have indicated that they are no longer interested in being part of the NBA. Our welfare secretary will lead our welfare team to find out, if there are ways and means whereby we can achieve rapprochement, achieve consensus in terms of agreeing on basic minimums, so that those individuals can continue with their membership of the NBA.
The management of the University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital has denied allegations the hospital is culpable in the alleged switching off of a ventilator, which later led to the death of a patient, Olushola Olagunju. The Deputy Chairman, Medical Advisory Committee of the hospital, Dr. Louis Odeoga, describes the allegation as untrue, noting that the patient was taken away by his family during the warning strike by health workers. He explains that the patient was not on any form of oxygen and even absconded with hospital bills.
Their faces say it all. They are mourning one of their own, late Olushola Olagunju, who's said to have lost his life as a result of alleged negligence of striking workers of the University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital, UITH.
My wife called me that the hospital is on strike.
Speaking on behalf of the family, the elder brother of Olushola Olagunju provides an insight into what led to the whole saga.
They said they have driven all the nurses out. They were flogging them that they should go out of the hospital. So he was alone. And they switch off the light. He was on respirator. They switch off the light. So he had breathing difficulty. Just within 5 minutes or 10 minutes, he gave up.
But when I heard the news, I was shocked.
On his part, the chairman of Johesu admitted that they were actually on a warning strike.
There was light there. At the emergency, there was light. Then we allow workers at the gas plant because we know some patients will be on gas. So we allow the workers at the gas plant to work, and they work 24 hours. So based on these, I'm shocked and I'm surprised that they said my member switch off the light. It's not true.
For the management of the hospital, it's a case of the pot calling the kettle black. They allege that the family is peddling half-truth as far as the matter is concerned.
No patient died in this hospital during the warning strike by the union in the hospital, because the union that went on strike gave us waivers to manage critical care areas in the hospital, like our intensive care unit, accident and emergency, our oxygen plants, operating theaters. All these areas were functioning.
Meanwhile, the University of Ilorin chapter of the Association of Resident Doctors have come out to further clarify the matter. In a press release jointly signed by its president and general secretary, the association insists its members were not on strike at the time the Olagunju saga was on, adding that it does not have access to the supply of electricity to the hospital and equipment and didn't chase nurses out while performing their duties.
The government of Osun State has ordered all principals and head teachers of public schools to revert to the old names of their various schools. The coordinating director, Ministry of Education, Mr. Taiwo Adiagbo, gave the directive in a circular addressed to principals, head teachers of elementary schools, inspectors of education, and zonal inspectors of education. This is sequel to Governor Boyega Oyetola's order reversing the single school uniform, reclassification of the public school system, and the abolition of single-sex schools introduced in 2013 by his predecessor, Rauf Aregbesola. Governor Oyetola says the review of some policies became important following the clamor for change by educationists, school administrators, missionaries, and school owners. When the news at 10 returns, plans to increase pump price of petrol for the month of September, out in the open, without concrete confirmation from the regulators, despite reports of prices reviewed twice. Plus, business news. Join us again. Welcome back. The National Orientation Agency, the NOA, is leading an advocacy on the need for accelerated hearing of all sexual and gender-based violence, as well as increased penalties for offenders. The NOA and the National Human Rights Commission says the rise in cases of sexual and gender-based violence in the country is a menace that needs to be tackled by all. They were speaking at a stakeholders meeting on gender-based violence in Abuja.
Sexual and gender-based violence is a global menace that spiked during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown. According to the United Nations, Nigeria recorded 56% increase in the number of reported cases of gender-based violence during this period. And according to that report, cases of gender-based violence from 24 states rose from 346 to 794 between the month of March and the first 2 weeks of April. Discussions about what needs to be done to tackle the menace of gender-based violence is the reason for this meeting by the National Orientation Agency in Abuja.
We advocate the setting up of Sexual Harassment Act desk officers in the MDAs. 3, timely prosecution and adequate penalty for offenders.
Our government should also put in place programs for prevention, protection, and provision of services to those vulnerable groups affected, as well as ensure accelerated disposal of cases of rape and SGBV.
Other participants at this roundtable also believe that there is a need to address this problem from within the family circle.
Decreasing violence against women and girls requires a community-based, multi-pronged approach and sustained engagement with multiple stakeholders.
The fight against this menace is one that must be tackled holistically, beginning at the root cause, from inside our house.
Nigeria signed into law the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act in 2015. However, more still needs to be done.
At the state level and at the local government level, we need the state governors to, beyond the commitment in words, to take more actions to ensure that the VAP Act, while adopted, becomes implemented and enforceable, because it's one thing to adopt, it's another thing to ensure it is enforced.
Gender-based violence is a term that describes any form of maltreatment against a person because of gender. While it affects women especially, men are not completely unaffected.
The Petroleum Products Marketing Company has increased the ex-depot price of premium motor spirit, also known as Petrol, to 147 naira per litre from 138 naira 62 kobo per litre. According to an internal memo signed by the depot manager and made available to marketers and other stakeholders, the new directive becomes effective today. The ex-depot price is the price at which the product is sold to marketers at the depots. Meanwhile, the PPMC is insisting that the new depot price for PMS does not suggest a new retail pump price, as the federal government is yet to announce a guiding premium motor spirit price band for the month of September 2020. The Independent Petroleum Marketers Association, IPMAN, has also debunked stories making the rounds that it has directed its members to adjust their pump price to 162 naira per litre. The association says it is still monitoring trends and will make the necessary adjustment following an advice by the PPRA. Meanwhile, the minority caucus in the House of Representatives has rejected the purported increase in the pump price of petrol from 148 naira to 151 naira, as previously believed. They're demanding a stay of implementation. The lawmakers said in a statement by the minority leader of the House of Representatives, Ndude Lumelu, that the increase is unacceptable as it will result in an increase in the already high cost of consumer goods and services, and will also worsen the current economic hardship suffered by Nigerians. The statement adds that any increase in the cost of essential commodity like fuel will bring more hardship to the people and as such should not be contemplated. International advocacy organization, Global Citizen, and the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority are partnering to create the Nigeria Solidarity Support Fund to combat the devastating effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the people. The group said in a statement, the Nigeria Solidarity Support Fund is created to support vulnerable groups, strengthening the Nigerian healthcare system, and reskill the Nigerian youth for a post-COVID-19 era. Chairman of the Global Citizens Nigeria, Mr. Babatunde Folawiyo, explains that with an initial target of 50 million naira, $50 million, the NSSF hopes to raise donations from Nigerians in the country as well as in the diaspora, multilateral organizations, philanthropists, the public sector, and international businesses. The group is soliciting support for funds via its website, Nigeria Solidarity Support Fund.ng. Global Citizen is the world's largest movement of action takers and impact makers dedicated to ending extreme poverty by 2030. Some company news now. A multi-billion naira Standard Metallurgical Steel Company located at Igbafa village in Shagamu local government area of Osun State has been handed over to CAM Integrated Steel, an indigenous steel company with pedigree for high-quality steel manufacturing, after necessary documents were signed and handed over to the new owners. At the handover ceremony held at the company premises, Chairman Kamardeen Yusuf says this is an attempt at bridging the deficit in the steel sector.
Sitting on a larger expanse of land, the multi-billion naira integrated steel company with a state-of-the-art facility and cutting-edge technology is expected to change the narrative and bridge the deficit in the steel manufacturing sector.
This will produce state-of-the-quality rebars, that is TMT, of different grades, and wire coils of 5.5 mm, which will be used internally for our in-house consumption for making nail shanks of different grades as well as zinc chloride grade. As we speak, we will be the largest producer of steel in Nigeria.
When the opportunity of this place come up, and we will tap into the opportunity to increase the capacity, at least to be able to generate over 10,000 employment for indirect and indirect employment to our country.
Representative of Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment.
The occasion everyone is waiting for is here. The signing and handing over of necessary documents to the new owners of the multi-billion naira steel company.
The steel industry will be a very important integral part of the nation's economy, necessary for speedy economic growth and social infrastructure development. There is need for government to focus more on the sector, recognize and declare iron and steel as national products to boost our foreign exchange earnings.
The Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Lekan Adegbite, who is represented at the occasion by the Senior Special Assistant, Olu Adedayo, is confident in the ability of the company to stimulate local content.
The event we are witnessing today
is an example of one of the steps to change the narrative of the minerals and metals sector. CAMS Integrated Company Limited is taking a giant step towards the achievement of the aims and objectives of the present administration.
With Nigeria projected to be importing about $3.3 billion metal annually, this integrated steel company is expected to produce an estimated 300,000 tons of steel per year and targets up to 10,000 direct and indirect jobs to unemployed youths in the country.
Let's get more business news now from Teniola Shubawali.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial star 894 hash now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks, Amarachi. Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's merchandise trade closed the second quarter of 2020 at 6.2 trillion naira, indicating a sharp fall of 27% quarter-on-quarter and 27.46% year-on-year. Latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics also reflects a 0.39% year-on-year rise in import component to over 4 trillion naira, while export account for 2.2 trillion naira, a decline of 51.73% when compared to the corresponding period of 2019. Nigeria's trade balance for the period consequently stood at a deficit of 1.8 trillion naira, marking the third consecutive quarter of negative trade balance. The naira closed flat at 386 and 440 each to the dollar today at the investors and exporters window, as well as the parallel segment of the forex market. However, traders say the local currency unit is still maintaining positive outlook after its recent rise, as it had firmed to 430 against the dollar earlier in the day. The sustained recovery is largely due to the announcement by the central bank that it would gradually resume its sale of foreign exchange to Bureau de Change operators twice a week from September the 7th. The naira has lost 108 of its value against the dollar since March this year, after falling to as low as 480 at the parallel market last month against 368 at which it traded 5 months ago. Tier 1 lender GT Bank has released its earnings result for the first half of 2020, showing a slightly resilient performance within the period. According to the financial report sent to the Nigerian Stock Exchange, the bank's group's gross earnings grew by 1.47% to 225.13 billion naira, and that's against 221.86 billion naira reported same period in 2019. However, the group's pre-tax profit fell by 5.2% to 109.71 billion naira against 115.78 billion naira in the first half of last year, after tax profit dropped by nearly 5% to 94.27 billion naira, while its earnings per share fell for the year, stood at 332 kobo within the period. Still with bank earnings, Stanbic IBTC has also released the results of its group financial performance for the first half of 2020. Highlights of the results sent to the NSE shows that the bank posted a higher gross earnings of 126.57 billion naira when compared to the 117.37 billion naira reported same period last year. At the same time, the group's pre-tax profits grew to 52.4 billion naira against 44.65 billion naira reported last year, while its after-tax profit jumped from 36.24 billion naira to 45.2 billion naira within the comparative period. Nearly 24 billion naira is added to the total value of listed equities today as the stock market maintains its uptrend into the second day of September. Temple Ashaju tells us more.
Thank you for joining us on the Stock Market Report. The stock market is keeping up with the positive trend of August in the new month of September as equities maintains the strong start of yesterday in today's trading session, rising by 0.18%. And the gains of today are spurred by the interest of investors in consumer goods and banking stocks, where pension funds administrators and high net worth individuals consider significant for re-entry. Now, besides these top three gainers of the market, Stanbic IBTC is recognized today for the release of its half-year result and the board's recommendation of a 40 kobo interim dividend payout after posting some 45 billion naira in profit. Analysts are optimistic that the local boss will keep the trend higher in the final months of the year, and this is based on the expectations of increased liquidity available to key investors locally. And that's your stock market report. I'm Temple Ashaju.
Thanks a lot, Temple. Well, it's also a positive close in midweek trading session for most of the world's leading stock markets, as the U.S. market indexes maintain strong rally in the new month. Let's take a look at their closing figures for the day. And that's business news tonight. It's back to Amarachi for the rest of the news at 10.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
The state of environmental emergency has deepened in Mauritius following the deaths of 3 sailors earlier this week. Their tugboat capsized while they were helping to clear the major oil spill from the Japanese ship MV Wakashio, which struck a coral reef on July 25th. Tens of thousands have campaigned in the capital, demanding for more action from the government. Earlier today, our correspondent in London, Juliana Olayinka, spoke with the former president of the island nation, Dr. Amina Gurib-Fakim, about the ecological disaster and the concerns from environmental campaigners.
Somewhere the institution hadn't worked properly. And I think when people took this to the street, and I think this was the biggest ever march this country has known, with over 150,000 people marching on the streets of the capital. But over and above this, we've had the diaspora that has also synchronized their protests across the world as well. And I think what they were calling for, they were rallying call for a more transparent society, for more transparent decision, for less cronyism, for less nepotism, for less corruption. I mean, these are the rallying calls from so many countries across the world. And the last one we saw was in Beirut, right? So this is what people are asking for. And interestingly, Juliana, is that this rally saw massive participation of young people. So I think they know what's at stake. Their future is at stake. And this is something that we, as leaders or past leaders or as elders, we have to take good note of that.
You can watch the full interview with Dr. Amina Gurib-Fakim during the channel's Business Global program. It airs on Friday at 4:30 p.m. right here on Channels Television. Our German Chancellor Angela Merkel says Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny was a victim of attempted murder and that the world would look to Russia for answers. Her comments come after the German government revealed there was unequivocal proof that Navalny was poisoned with a Novichok nerve agent. While his team says it was poisoned on Vladimir Putin's orders, the Russian government has dismissed the allegation and called on Germany for a full exchange of information. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The former French President François Hollande has urged the upholding of freedom of expression and the right to blasphemy as 14 suspects face trial over the deadly 2015 attack on the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. Most of the alleged accomplices are in court in Paris, but 3 are being tried in absentia. They are accused of helping the militant Islamist attackers who shot dead 12 people in and around the Charlie Hebdo's Paris office in January 2015. In a related attack, a third gunman shot dead a policewoman, then attacked a Jewish store, killing 4 people. The 17 victims were killed over a period of 3 days. The Trump administration has indicated that it will not participate in international coalition efforts to find and distribute a vaccine for COVID-19 because the World Health Organization is involved. It said it did not want to be constrained by the corrupt World Health Organization and China. The international effort is meant to speed up vaccine efforts and distribute it equally with the participation of 172 other countries. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has been greeted by an ever-divided crowd in Kenosha as he visited the city of Wisconsin, where the shooting of Jacob Blake took place. Blake, a black male, was shot 7 times in the back by the police in an incident on August the 23rd, which deepened nationwide resentment at racial injustice. Kenosha, with a population of only 100,000 people, quickly spiraled into heated protests. Prior to Trump's visit, local officials, including the governor of Wisconsin, had asked the president not to make the trip, fearing it would flare up tensions.
There's so much hate running rampant in this country, and it kills me. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. You know, I don't want this for my children. I don't want this for our country. Make America great again? What? When was this country ever great for us as black people? When? You know, never.
Comrade Duch, a former senior figure of the Khmer Rouge convicted of crimes against humanity in Cambodia, has died. He was serving a life term after being sentenced by a UN-backed court. Duch ran the notorious Chul Sleng prison, where thousands of people were tortured and murdered in the late 1970s. As many as 2 million people are believed to have died under the Khmer Rouge, a Maoist regime that controlled Cambodia from 1975 to 1979. Thailand's king has reinstated his royal consort to the position nearly a year after she was stripped of her titles in a dramatic fall from grace. Sininat was stripped of her rank in October 2019, only months after she was granted the honours. The palace had said that she was being punished for trying to elevate herself to the same state as the Queen. Sininat was the first royal consort for almost a century in Thailand, where the term refers to a companion or partner in addition to the king's wife. Mali's ousted President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta has been admitted to a hospital in the capital Bamako. The 75-year-old politician was detained for 10 days by the military junta before announcing his resignation and was later free to stay at home. During mediation talks, he was quoted as saying that he was not interested in the presidency. The opposition has been calling for his resignation for months, blaming him for economic decline, corruption and a failure to contain a jihadist insurgency. Berlin has announced that Moore Street will be renamed after a black philosopher called Anton Wilhelm Amo as part of an ongoing initiative to decolonize the city. Organisations supporting the rights of Africans and Afro-Germans have long demanded the renaming of the street. Moore is a racialized reference to the Muslim inhabitants across what is now Europe and North Africa during the Middle Ages. The term is dated, but many restaurants and streets across Germany still carry the name. Pope Francis has held his first weekly general audience with a live crowd since March, where he announced an international day of prayer and fasting for Lebanon.
Cari fratelli e sorelle.
About 500 people attended the audience, nearly all of them wearing masks and keeping social distance, except for when the Pope walked near them. Francis met a Lebanese priest and bowed his head to say a silent prayer for the country, which is still reeling from last month's deadly port blast and rising sectarian tensions. And finally, the Venice Film Festival has begun, making it the first international event to take place with an actual audience since the movie world was put on pause due to the pandemic. With coronavirus cases rising again in Italy and elsewhere, a strict safety protocol has been put in place. Anyone attending from outside Europe's Schengen area will have to test for COVID-19 before departure. Temperatures will be checked and every second seat in the cinemas will be left empty. The festival will run until September the 12th. And that's your international news around the world in 5. And now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
The league management company has sealed a long-term partnership with United Kingdom-based firm to commercialize the Nigeria Professional Football League. The league governing body said Red Strike Media has acquired the media and marketing rights of the elite division and the participating clubs. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Football Federation have announced 2 international friendlies for the Super Eagles in the month of October. According to the NFF president, the Super Eagles will face the Elephants of Cote d'Ivoire on October the 9th and the Carthage Eagles of Tunisia on October the 13th in Austria. FC Bayern Munich have bid farewell to Brazilian playmaker Philippe Coutinho after his year-long loan deal from Barcelona expired with the newly crowned European champions. Having paid $10 million to have Coutinho on loan, Bayern opted not to use the buy option of $142 million. And that's sports news.
On a programming note, the timing for our program Kaleidoscope will be 11:30 p.m. tonight instead of the regular 11 p.m. A documentary on the handover of houses to top judicial officers in Rivers State will now air at 11 p.m. Please join us tonight, Wednesday, September 2nd at 11 p.m. right after the news for the Rivers State documentary, and at 11:30 p.m. for Kaleidoscope only on Channels Television on the DSTV platform only. Just a reminder. And the main news again. The Oba of Benin today met with leaders of political parties in Edo State ahead of the September 19 governorship election. The monarch called for peaceful conduct and cautioned politicians against setting the state on fire through their comments and actions. That is the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubadi. Good night.